Hello, Gomez here for the LAN Up. Right, this is exciting news, right? Because literally, we only thought that Aphelios was joining us. Turns out there's more cards. I saw the first card and I was like, look, I'm gonna stop listening to the video, but it's also patch those. Let's get into this. So this is much excitement. Aphelios, obviously we know his stuff, but there are other cards. Let's talk about them, and then we're going to the patch notes. Let's very quickly get into all the new cards. This is amazing news. Right, so the first one, Targon. It's a Nexus Strike, draw one and shuffle me into the top 3 cards of your deck. Now, it's interesting because technically it's draw, but at the same point it is diluting your deck, but it is constant damage in that enemy Nexus, potentially with the elusiveness. Obviously, you play this, so imagine similar to a Katrina kind of effect, whereby you play, do, and then it instantly recalls itself and puts itself. That's how I'm reading this card, because and shuffle me, meaning the card, into the top 3 cards of your deck. That's how I see that. So a Katrina kind of thing. So it will be a loss on tempo. It will be a loss on tempo, but it will be a draw mechanic. So it's kind of elusive draw mechanic, but will it see play? It's definitely interesting, and I feel like I will make a deck that's built around this, because potentially making loads of them could be interesting. The problem is you make loads of them, they start drawing themselves. I mean, there could be ways of doing it. It's a really nice card, Targon card. It's a nice turn 1 for Targon, as well as obviously, I mean, their main turn 1 is Big Muscle Man, Big Muscle Sun's out, which is Sun's out, Guns out, but this provides a little bit more of an interesting turn 1, but I don't know whether or not this will see play, because it is kind of, if it shuffles itself back into your deck, then it kind of dilutes your draw from things that you want, so potentially it won't see play, but very interesting nonetheless. The art style is very nice. Right, so we have here, yeah, again, art style, magnificent. So the Sky Shadows, rather than the Sky's Descent, when I'm summoned, refill 2 mana if you behold a Nightfall card. So yet again, this potentially sees play in those Nightfall cards, as well as the fact that this is a 2-cost unit, so therefore it will see kind of play in the Aphelios, because Aphelios has summoned 2-cost units as one of his things. So technically, this will be summoned. It is a summon effect of if you behold a Nightfall card, which admittedly, Aphelios is a Nightfall card in and of himself, and so therefore if you have him on the board, you use that weapon, which then summons this. This then does that, refills your mana for 2. So actually, it does have synergy with Aphelios himself, which is good. It might see play elsewhere, but I don't know exactly. So maybe in a Diana deck, which is obviously like you got to kind of be working off the Beholder and Nightfall card to get that extra 2 mana. Just bear in mind that will then allow you to play Power Cascade. I haven't looked at the patch notes yet, so if Power Cascade is hit, ignore that. But I will get into the patch notes directly after this one. But okay. So the Fangs, yet again, Targon, it is played to invoke a Celestial card that costs 3 or less. There's a lot of cards which are doing that now. This one costs 4, but it does have the keyword Lifesteal, which is good because obviously then that's free damage that you can get back. There's certain buff cards that can make this even do more damage, like in terms of, I said, Power Cascade, or even a Mentor of the Stones. So if you Mentor of the Stones on turn 3, then throw this down, that's going to be a 5/4. Which is going to be able to get like a lot of lifesteal back. So there is potentials within there that, like, you know, it definitely has got a chance of seeing play, but there is a lot of lifesteal cards within that region anyway, Targon. So we'll see how it goes. It does still have okay stats. As I said, it's a turn 4, potentially directly after you play Mentor of the Stones, this could drop and have impact, but obviously Mentor of the Stones is kind of like reserved for Lee Sin at this moment in time. But I mean, I've got to move my face. I do. Nope. We just said a bunch of things. This is just letting you see this a little bit better, so I do apologize. But yes, no, obviously it's got the life steal. I do feel like a Mentor of the Stones, but I already said all of that, so I'll just like do a little cut into this. But anyway, good card nonetheless. Let's keep going. Okay, so this one is actually quite interesting. So it's a Nightfall unit. Stun an enemy. If it's a follower, stun it again at the start of next turn. So this allows you to either play this on your defensive turn, so that you know that that's then going to be stunned again on when it goes into your attack turn, or on your attack turn to know when you go into your defensive turn, that unit is going to be stopped. If it's a follower, obviously it is stun an enemy, so you can still stun a champion, but you get more benefit if you do stun a follower. Obviously this is played on Nightfall. This is a 5-cost card, so it's going to cost a lot to do, unless obviously you have that one which basically can make Nightfall cards cost 1 less to make that cost 4 rather than 5. But it definitely is an interesting thing. The fact that it can affect for multiple rounds is really good, and especially if you're playing that in a Yasuo deck, the ability of stunning, do some damage with Yasuo, and then immediately at the start of the next turn it stuns, he hits it again. That is possible for that to be a thing in there. And this unit has actually got Overwhelm as well, so that is something else to think. It's actually, yeah, again, a magnificent artwork on all of these cards, by the way. Right, we go on. Targon getting a little bit greedy on the landmark front now. This is the third one for this, because obviously they've got Star Spring, they've got Targon's Peak, and now the Veil Temple. So Targon with its 3 landmarks. This one obviously is working. So each round, the first time that you play 2 other cards, so just literally just playing 2 cards. So you can literally make actually a really cheap deck. Refill 2 mana and grant your strongest ally +1/+1. So the ability of this could either be used in a Nightfall deck, because obviously every single time you Nightfall, that's playing 2 cards, which is going to help you with this. Or you could even play this in, say, that discard deck that was working with Zoe and Jinx, because technically that plays a lot of cards like, you know, one after the other. So really cheap cards, but then making your strongest get bigger. I don't know, like there's a slight chance in that. Obviously you want your strongest to be a minion with Overwhelm. If you're playing this with aphelios, he has the ability of giving Overwhelm with one of his weapons, so potentially chances going in there. Maybe even in a Riven what's his face deck, like a Reforged deck, because yet again those are quite cheap cards as well. But also this just works in like a multitude of different ways. There's so many different ways that you can use just cheap cards to very quickly get things out and make units stronger. Whether or not this will see play or not, I do not know, because it might be a little bit too slow. And also the fact that literally it's only the strongest unit, so literally your opponent just targets that really quickly in removal. But it might see play. I'm not guaranteeing on this one, but it's really lovely design, and I do like the idea of it. But Targon's getting a little bit greedy of those landmarks. Just want to say I love the artwork on this, and I love the fact that it is yet again another thing that goes with the mess. They're going down the doggo route, the cosmic dog route, and I love it. With the fact that literally, if you behold the messenger, so it only works with that. Bear in mind that is that card which shuffles messengers in your deck. The only problem with that is that literally once you shuffle those, you are diluting your deck. Even though it's a draw card, you've got to pay 2 every single turn. But this might make it, this might make it somewhat more viable. It probably won't, but at the same point, it's really interesting to see. Behold the messengers and the dog one. Grant celestial allies everywhere. So even ones you've not played yet, so an invoke deck that runs that card, and there is actually a number of cards which do invoke into the 3 or less, which obviously the messenger is part of. So it might see some play for gaining more stats onto things. So potentially a mono Targon, which is like, so you played the what's his face guy, the Scryer. This might see play, right, in terms of the fact that it's going to be buffing stats among all those celestials. So Scourge dropping as an 11/11, or like whatever else that you can put out there, as well as the fact obviously there is certain cards that buff through more celestials. So I will definitely be making this, because I definitely want to make another Star Dog deck, so I'll definitely be working with this. But I love that they've gone more down that line as well. Okay, now this one is insane. So, stress testing. Remove fleeting from all cards in hand. When I'm discarded, draw 1, it becomes fleeting. But, so it can be used in a discard deck. But what makes this more insane is pick a card. pick a card in which Infinity basically draws 3 cards, makes them all fleeting. It's a cheap draw for free, and then boom, you just go, no, well, none of those are going anywhere, because obviously the downside of pick a card is the fact that literally it means that those things are fleeting, so it's hard to play all of them at once. But the ability to then go, yeah, no, that's stress testing, everything's no longer fleeting anymore, good day. Devastating cards. So pick a card. This is amazing pick cards. It also works really well with cards within this region, because obviously you could make the Jinx. You could technically you can make the Jinx spell stay, but would it be worth it? Because the fact that obviously it would cost 1, the rocket would cost 1 anyway, so that's probably not going to see much. But the investigator, that investigator who draws 2 and makes them fleeting, or even the what's her face, like Varzi or Vaz, whatever her name is, the one which literally, like the mechanist or something along those lines, who whenever you draw a card, you draw another one of them, but they're fleeting. The ability to make that stay is really good. There's certain cards which literally create fleeting options, but then the ability to be able to make those fleeting options stay. I could go and try and look through all the different things that this works with in terms of all the different fleeting things, but pick a card is definitely one of the strongest. But there will be others. Okay, right. Okay, here's another one for you. The ability of using a soul and using legend spell, which get, like, you know, the legends of thingamajig, getting that handful of cards and then immediately going boom, they're no longer fleeted. I get all those celestials now. That's another way that card could be used. So actually, that's quite funny. This is a really powerful card. It's more powerful than it looks for the like when you first look at this. As well as the fact that, I don't know, like there's certain like other things that this could open up. I don't know, like I said, like I can't remember all of the fleeting cards, but those are the 2 which come to mind. Pick a card and that Celestial Legends card, literally just making boom, everything stays now, is options. So stress testing, yeah, again, I can see this having, I can see myself having a lot of fun with this card. Okay, troll gifts. So troll gifts is granted ally regeneration if they already have it, because immediately a lot of trolls already have regeneration. Grant it 2/2 instead. So the ability of giving somebody regeneration, there's certain cards which have got really good stats that giving them regeneration is magnificent. So for example, you could pair this. So already in my head, I'm seeing a potential Bilgewater deck where you literally run Boxtopus and just give him, so you play Boxtopus and you give him this you give this minion, and you've got a challenge minion who's continuously getting this, as well as the fact that if you're playing Scargrounds with that, you're continuously doing this. There's certain things like that. So certain challenge minions which have great stats, the ability of putting regeneration on them so they can just get those stats back. Even the throwing this on top of Fiora. Fiora is already quite a devastating card. The one that if you play with what's his face, Freljord, has got a lot of combat tricks, so with Troll Chant, with Frostbites and whatnot, so potentially just putting regeneration onto Fiora, that is actually another way this card can be used, and it's most likely going to be a way that I'm going to use it, because you've got the ability to buff her stats in this thing with Take Heart, and then just throw a regeneration on her, and you're laughing. So expect a Fiora deck from me with this card, because it's gonna be hilarious. I don't know whether or not anyone else has thought about that, but it's gonna be a lot of fun. But it does work with a number of different things. This card, like the ability to throw this, say, on top of battering ram in Noxus, or like that. Like there's certain cards which hitting this, the regeneration factor basically means that it's going to be really hard to remove them. Is going to be my point. Other than if you're playing Shadow Isles and you've got like mass removal, like Vengeance, Thingamajig, or like there's certain things, but this is definitely going to be a lot of fun to play with this. So I look forward to this card. I can see myself, like the fact this is a 2-mana burst speed again, insane value, as well as the fact that obviously a card's already got regeneration, so you can even put this onto Brom himself to give Brom additional stats, because he already has regeneration. So more things like that. I love this, and yes, this is going to be a lot of fun. These cards are going to shake things up to a really fun degree. Okay, boom! Gluttony. Kill an ally with last breath to summon a follower from your deck that costs 1 more. Right. So, immediately, this gives you the ability to do the Anivia into Rekindler plan, because you can kill Anivia, because Anivia has last breath, which then gives the egg, and then Rekindler immediately goes into summoning another one. So that works there. It could work in a number of different ways if you were running this in a deck. So it's kind of like it's finding the right last breath, or it's finding the last breath minions to work with what you're trying to get to, right? So obviously this could be used to make, say, what is it? I'm trying to think of, like, you know, any kind of 4 costs with. I mean, I could literally go through it and find all the different ones where the next one up, so that goes into that. That goes into that. Anivia into Rekindler is the first one that comes to mind, but there's probably going to be other last breath cards where there is going to be a unit which costs 1 more that if you can tailor it to make sure it's going into that is going to be a lot of fun. Because I was trying to think of a 4 cost one, because immediately then going into the 5 cost Radiant Guardian from Demacia would be an interesting thing to do. But there is also, as I said, like, there's probably so many examples that I just can't think of right now. So obviously you could do this off of Cursed Keeper to make Cursed Keeper immediately make Abomination, but then also bring another 3 cost out. I don't know what 3 cost you'll be looking for at that moment in time, but it gives those options. Bear in mind, it summons a follower from your deck, so it's not going to summon a champion. That's an important thing to note. It's not a unit-based thing. It's not like summon a unit that costs me. It's summon a follower, so it's not going to summon champions. That's very important to note about this card. But other than that, there is certain things which are going to make this, like, really fun to use and really fun to play around with. Shadow Owls has always got a bunch of really fun play around with cards, so yes, this is a card that I love the idea of. Yes. Riot, yes. So Flurry of Fists, grant an ally +1, so this is granting, bear in mind, +1 and quick attack. If it already has it, grant it double attack instead. Now, here's gonna be my question. It does say if it already has quick attack. What about if you've given it quick attack with the 1 cost, isn't it like a 1 cost burst speed spell in that region, which is give an ally +1 and quick attack? So say that you do that and then put this on there. Technically, it already has quick attack. So will it grant it double attack instead? That's actually a very important question, because it's like if it already has it, because technically you're playing that one. So you could give near enough every card in the game double attack if you were playing the Ionian card and you're using that 1 mana burst speed card to give quick attack. So really fun. The potential of also this would work with Reforged. There's Reforged, the card which gives quick attacks and then giving double attack instead. There are certain cards within this game that doing so would be unbelievably powerful to just like smash damage home, especially if that unit has Overwhelm. So you're looking at like a potential that makes Noxian stuff look even better. The ability to give even the 3 cost what is it, like, why can't I think of the damn name, like the Ballista or whatever it is, the 4/3 with Overwhelm, giving it quick attack and then allowing it to strike again. Like, that's a really quick unit you can get out which has Overwhelm and the ability to give it double attack. This could get really interesting. Bear in mind that Hush is always going to be a thing, but I haven't got to patch notes, so who knows, maybe Hush has been hit. I don't know what's been hit and what hasn't been hit, so I could be saying all this stuff and it could be complete bollocks. But at the same point, really great card, and I can see certain ways, but I do want to know what that interaction is with that 1 mana burst speed card, which does give quick attack, because then it will grant double attack. So, yes! Yes! More powder monkeys. So, summon a powder monkey and give a random enemy vulnerable this round for each time you've activated plunder. So if you're running a nab deck or running a plunder deck, the ability of making, you can basically make near enough everyone vulnerable this turn on your opponent's side, depending obviously how many times you've hit plunder. It is slow speed, but obviously if it's on your attack turn and you're granting things vulnerable, so it kind of does work with Misfortune if you were to level her up, because then or just to make sure you're doing 1 damage to everything on the opponent's side of the field if you're running a plunder deck with this. So there is certain synergies, or even if you wanted to just get really good trade ups, so you need to find like certain things. So is there the potential for a Demacian so instead of scouts, Demacian Bilgewater deck without scouts, instead of scouts, running dragons and getting plunder in there? So plunder dragon deck, which then allows everyone to go vulnerable, and then you can just get those dragons to be big men through just like the trades you can force off on your opponent's side of the field. Potential thing there, but it's an interesting card. It's definitely, I do like going more down the powder monkey route. So yes. Again, I can see ways this could work, as well as the fact that obviously, as I said, giving everyone vulnerable, it just means that you could decide trade-offs. And as I said, if you're playing Misfortune, you at least know that you're going to get that 1 damage in, if not more damage. It's going to be keeping her alive that's going to be the most important thing in that. But Wild Claws for Noxus. Which good. An ally strikes an enemy. If it has Overwhelm, deal excess damage. So this is a strike move, which is going to be causing excess damage to hit the, which if your unit's got Overwhelm, which a number of units in Noxus have, as well as the fact that if you're playing Reforge allows you to give somebody Overwhelm. It is a 5-mana slow speed spell. Not 100% sure whether or not this one will see play, but obviously if you are using Darius would hit in, and that Overwhelm damage would be significant. So it depends on obviously the significance of the Overwhelm damage, but Darius, this could see play with him in terms of you'd have to make sure he's leveled and on the board, but he could see potential doing that damage because he's got a lot of Overwhelm damage, or at least finding a really big statted unit which you could put Overwhelm on with Reforge or something, and then being able to do this. So for example, if you were to run the Vi Riven deck, the ability of then putting Overwhelm on top of Vi and then using this card does open some possibilities, as well as the fact that then when she strikes forward and grabs something, doing 5 damage if she's leveled. This would actually be a way of leveling Vi as well, because technically it does say strike, and I believe that her card text is if I strike an enemy for 10 damage then level. So potential way of leveling her, but obviously it's not going to be easy to do. Like, you're not going to be able to play this on the same turn as her, but potentially the next turn, say that you're going into either your defensive turn, so you want to get rid of something, or if you want to go into your attack turn and then get rid of this, level her before attacking forward. Especially if you give her Overwhelm, potential choices are there. I do like the idea of that, but I can see ways of doing it. It's slow speed, so it can't be used during the middle of combat. That might see this card not see as much play. So for Demacia, we see Molten Breath, an ally with Fury. So it's gonna be an ally with Fury, strikes the 2 weakest. So knowing the fact that is going to be giving one of your dragons, like say if you're running Screeching, which is obviously like one of the best dragons there is available in that deck, or in that region. I mean, there is other dragons, but it's one of the best ones, right, for the challenge. The ability to make sure that it's going to be striking 2 weeks, so it's going to be like taking things away from your opponent while basically furying itself up, does give a lot of value. It is a 6-cost slow speed, so potentially, like, you know, Concerted is a bit cheaper, but then it's only striking 1. And as well, this could work really quickly to level up Shyvana. If you're playing Shyvana, the ability of just doing this, striking that damage in from a dragon. So will this see play potentially? Like, people will definitely experiment with it. It's a lot of mana. At the 6-cost mana bit, it is a lot of mana to play, but it could shut down certain bits on your opponent's side of the field and then allow you to go forward for a big attack. But we'll see. I'm not 100% sure whether or not this will see play, but I will definitely be experimenting with it, which I'm sure that many other people will be. But that ability, it's a good swing of this unit takes out 2 units and gets bigger. That's what's really good about it, as well as the quick Shyvana level up and like different things. But it's the slow speed. It's always the slow speedness. And then there is the man himself, the glorious man, but we already know all the stuff because we've obviously covered that before. But we also have patch notes, people. So let's get into those patch notes and see what we have available to us. Okay, so haven't had a look at these yet. we've got a lunar celebration, so we did get told there was gonna be theology. So literally, so it looks like you're going to be able to get all the cards, right? Is that what this is saying? So our most complex adapted champion to date, yes, because obviously Aphelios was a really complicated champion. Anyway, deeper into the theology, so praise the moon! Get Aphelios as soon as he lands in the next patch, and look at the cards coming in the expansion. So claim the award. So this is a login one, so you log in day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, and day 6. You're going to get one copy of at least all of those, and then which is for the full 7 days, it looks like you're going to get a copy of a lot of different spells and that, but it's only going to be one copy, so you're going to have to craft the others. But that is still good, right? That is free resource that they're giving you, which is at least giving you some of these new cards which are coming out, as well as one of the new champions itself on day 1. So that's actually quite big that they've done that. This is a lot of free resource if you're just logging in daily, so that's really well done on their point. So now we get to some buffs and nerfs and whatnot. Okay, so champion wise, this is just cards that are finishing. So they're removing the overwhelm, which admittedly her attack ability is already, so the ability of making it 1 damage 3 times, it's a lot to do, and then giving her overwhelm on top of that was a bit over the top. So it's a nice little change that we're seeing to Misfortune here, in terms of the fact that it just makes her, because obviously what would happen is you would then go forward into her, she'd have overwhelm, she'd be doing 3 damage, which would kill most things, and then the overwhelm damage just going through. So it will lessen her power, more so than what people might think, but it will actually lessen her power a lot more than what people think, because you can still put a blocker in front of her. You still put a blocker in front of her and not worry about that overwhelm damage hitting in. So that is actually quite big. So that's good little change to try and make it a bit more fair, especially considering the fact it's a big deck. So let's see, now create a Hexcore upgrade on both play and start. So when he plays, he immediately drops to a Hexcore. So normally it was just round start. Or is it just hit, or are we talking about the leveled up version, or like I said, the card text? Now create a Hexcore. So the second he plays, because before you had to wait, so you played him, you had to wait till the round start to start. So you play him and immediately can upgrade him, which is actually a big thing. The main problem with Victor and Victor's archetype is the fact that he can be very easily countered with Hush. Targon is a really powerful region at this moment in time, and therefore he might be able to get up and buff himself to an unbelievable degree, but Spell Shield needs to be put on top of him for him to get that massive damage. But this is at least some way of helping him out, because he immediately upon dropping can at least buff himself slightly. So that is actually quite a big change. I'm actually going to swap myself back around again. It is actually a big change to do that. Okay, Grand Plaza, we were expecting a hit. We were expecting a hit on Grand Plaza. My God, am I happy to see it, because let's face it, Grand Plaza was everywhere. So, change. When an ally is summoned, give it +1/+1 and challenge it this round. When an ally is summoned, give it plus. So, it's now gone. So, it still is summon, but it doesn't give the health stat anymore, but it still gives the +1 and challenge. So, it's not a complete nerf. But it is what you get, but it is so it still can work in the decks that it's working in, because the thing of it is that the summon keyword is actually a very important part of this, because let's face it, the ephemeral deck that's playing it, which is obviously a really big one, so the Lucian Hecarim ephemeral deck doesn't really care about the health stat, because most of the things that it is getting are ephemeral, so they're going to die at the end of the turn anyway. So admittedly, that's not that big of a hit to that. It will be a slight hit to the scout deck, because that now means that there are certain things which are not going to get that health buff to help them get through things. So for example, Valor's no longer going to have that extra health stat that means that it could potentially do 2 trades, or it's not going to give certain things in the scout deck thing. But in the ephemeral deck doesn't care about the health stat, right? So admittedly, so my nerf idea, which I said on the podcast that I do with Jankie, I thought they were going to do this to when played, because obviously when played means that the summon, so basically it would mean Grizzled Ranger would attack forward, die, and then the bear that he summons would not get the +1 challenge stat. It wouldn't get anything because you have to play units. That's how I thought they were going to do this, but obviously this is still a change. It does at least mean that scouts is going to be a little bit more easy to deal with, especially with Valor and things like that. So that is that. But the ephemeral deck has not really been hit with that nerf. I'm just going to say that. So I feel like we're still going to see a resurgence of that, or even just a dragon deck, and that I can still see abilities happening there. Okay. War Chef's actually getting those stats up. Obviously, he's a really good like healing unit, so he still keeps the rest of it, but his stat line. So this is somewhat of a buff. It is increasing his damage, but also reducing his health. So there's certain traits he's not going to be able to do, but he's still buffing the other unit. Homecoming, seeing a change from 5 to 4. So it's a recall. It gives you the ability to get rid of landmarks. It was Demacia's so it was Ionia's only real landmark removal. So it's just interesting to see because not many people were playing it. So putting it down to 4 cost, it might see play. Not 100% about that, but it might see play. It can also give you the ability to recall a unit that you want to recall to replay again. So there is potential in there for Homecoming. The big Christmas tree. So, oh, this guy getting a big kind of stat increase. Obviously, his attack's still gonna be low, but he's gonna have free attack. That's quite devastating. But admittedly, he was a free cost. He wasn't being played. He was a 1/1. He does grant like all allies in hand +1/+1. So there was fringe ways of using him, but his cost for free for a 1/1 wasn't too good. So is that stat line enough to see him played? I don't know. Probably not. And they're saying with Homecoming, wanting to make some small changes. So obviously, the ability of recalling this guy with like Homecoming to then do that, just that attack stat of that. It's interesting, but whether or not it's going to see enough play. Farron was actually a big hit that people wanted to see as well. So now he's only going to be making 2 instead of 1, because I thought 2 instead of 3. He used to get 3 decimates, which was in himself basically a game ender, because it was a big unit with overwhelm that was going to be smashing in, and he was creating 3 lots of 4 damage, which is a lot of damage. So they've just nerfed him to make him that little bit more fair. I don't mind that. To be fair, most people weren't playing all 3 anyway, because they were just like, well, like at the time that you're playing Farron, because it's normally played in aggressive decks. By the time you're playing Farron, that overwhelm damage goes in. You're probably not going to need to play all 3. So, the 1 or the 2, but the third one was probably a little bit over the top. So, we're seeing that. The cost of this guy back down. So the cost of the level up of Riven going down to 1 cost to put it in line with the gems, because obviously that was a big thing, right? The fact that all gems cost 1, and then fragments of the blade cost 1, and then boom, it comes down to playing the Blade of the Exiles. It's a slow speed spell at first, but also it's free cost, so it was a little bit cumbersome to put itself in. Whether or not it's it's definitely going to improve that archetype, right? It's going to improve it to give you more choices when playing this, because obviously it's not going to take as much mana out of you. So it does increase that. So it's a big buff to Riven and the Reforge mechanic in general. So it's nice. It's nice to see. We're also seeing a little bit more of this. So yeah, that's going to work with the Reforge. So obviously you don't really care about this guy's health stat. You technically don't want him to survive, because you want him to die so you can get the Reforge. So changing that stat line to be a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more in play with what Noxus is anyway, a little bit more of an aggressive stat line. It makes sense for the Blade Squad, because obviously I said you want him to die, and that puts him in line with that, with what you're trying to do. Hush! Another big hit that everyone's been asking for. Hush has been hit so many times, and a Power Cascade I'm seeing, but Hush has been hit so many times. Going from 2 to 3, that's going to make it a little bit more fair. I'm not going to lie, that does make it fairer. Hush is such an annoying card to come up against, that the fact that they are putting it up to 3 cost is a little bit more of a better place for that to be, considering the fact that Targon has got so many heals. So if you were doing a lot of damage and then they'll just heal themselves up, and then any kind of big things that you put out, they would then Hush it for 2 cost. It's nice to see that Hush has now gone up to a 3 cost. So 2 cards that people expected to get hit were the Landmark and Hush, so that's good to see. Power Cascade, another big one that people were expecting to see get hit. So the change to this one now is that instead of +1, which instead of +2 +1, it is now +1 +1, but it still does the draw. So I'm not gonna lie, as I said, I still think that the way they should have changed this card should have been not to increase health stat, because that health stat can get that card through a number of different things. So I wouldn't have minded it being +2 +0 and Nightfall draw 1. I didn't actually mind that, but because for 2 cost it's a lot to go on, but it's +1 +1, so it still allows favorable trades, but not as devastating. Plus as well with Diana herself, because obviously that Nightfall card, like, it would give her +2 but then plus an additional 2 or 3. I can't remember when she plays Nightfall cards, so it is good. So it's kind of brought down. Not many people used it for that fact, but it was something which was used with her. But yeah, so +1 +1. It's somewhat more effective, but it looks like we've got to all the ends of all the cards. It's some really good change. They've definitely changed cards which people were definitely talking about. A lot of even people were talking about Victor, but the Landmark, Hush, and Power Cascade were definitely cards. We haven't seen nothing happen to Troll Chant or Sharp Sight, which, yeah, again, people have been asking for changes, but other than that, it's all good. So obviously, really great patch. So they hit a number of things that people went. New cards as well, which no one was expecting. So big things that I will be crafting with all those new cards and having a lot of fun tomorrow night on stream. If you don't know already, shameless plug time, Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram. You can catch me live on Twitch on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. As well as that, there's a Discord link down below. There's all the different things, so if you want to get involved, please feel free, but do not feel forced. There's also, if you like, please comment down below on what you think on all these changes that have been made. Like, what are you happy to have seen changed? I would love to hear from you guys, so honestly, any comments. Thank you all so much for the support, and until next time, bye!
Flash of brilliance that could save me. Save me! That doesn't save me. Okay. Is there anything from you? Save me. That doesn't save me! Okay. Get rid of this and get rid of this. Find something that can save me.